Welcome back everybody to this part 2 of our Starfox style rail shooter tutorial series. In the previous video we worked on player movement, creating a smooth camera follow script and clamp the player within the camera boundaries. Now in this video let's work on some more advanced maneuvers such as leaning and
do a barrel roll.
So when you're ready, like Peppy said, let's crack on. Okay, let's jump right into it as there's going to be a fair bit to cover in this tutorial, including double tap inputs for what would be shoulder buttons, but in this case we'll use the Q and E key. So let's go and jump right into our player controller script. Okay, let's start nice and simple with the leaning, as it's very familiar to what we did for the tilting before we get into the complicated things like double tapping to initiate barrel rolls using coroutines. We'll look at those a little bit later. But for now, the only variable we need, and we can place that right next to tilt speed after the comma, is a lean speed, how fast we want to get into the lean state, where our ship is going to be on its side, almost wings vertical in the air and to the ground. Then let's go and scroll down to a new method called shoulder inputs. Here, we're going to control all our shoulder button inputs, whether we're pressing it or holding it down. Let's start off with holding it down so we can lean. And we'll do that with two if statements. If input.getKey, key code Q to lean left, so when we hold down the Q key, and if input.getKey, key code E to lean right when we hold down the E key. The code inside these is exactly the same. The only value we're going to change is the angle we want to rotate on. It's 95 positive for left, minus 95 to rotate to the right. So let's see what we've got. We have, like before with the tilting, a vector-free new Euler angle equals the transform.local Euler angle of the player. And we want to update that angle, so transform.local Euler angle will equal a new vector-free. New Euler angle X and new Euler angle Y are unaffected. We only want to rotate on Z. So therefore, we're going to use mathf.lerp angle. And the values we want to interpolate between, we want to affect the new Euler angle.Z, rotate to the angle of 95, and how fast are we going to rotate to that? That's going to be by our lean speed. And it's exactly the same, like I said, for the E input, except we're going to be rotating minus 95. Next, let's go back into update, and let's punch in shoulder inputs, and go ahead, hit save, and let's test this out. Okay, so let's go and punch in our lean speed, but before we do, I just want to point out that a good minimum value here is 0.5, because even though we've called these tilt speed and lean speed, it's not so much how fast they're going to get to that state, but the time it's going to take to interpolate to that state. If the time is too short or the speed is too short, it's not going to hit that desired angle. Let me show you what I mean. A good minimum here is 0.5, but if I go less, say 0.3, when I lean now, you're going to see that the interpolation is only going to happen for 0.3 of a second. We're not quite hitting the full 95 degrees that we desire. But if we were to go ahead and change this to 0.5, you'll see that when I lean, we're getting a nice flush, almost vertical lean. So do bear that in mind. So go ahead, punch in at least 0.5. And let's give this one last test. We're flying smooth, and if we punch in our lean, yep, really nice and snappy. I like that a lot. Now, let's go ahead and get into the good stuff. The double tapping to barrel roll, using coroutines, and more. So, when you're ready, let's jump back into the player controller script. So, back at the top, let's punch in another set of variables for our double tapping. The first will be some serialized floats. Float first tap time, the time it took for us to press it once, Q or E. Then the time between taps, which will be the time frame with which to register a second input. Once we do tap Q or E twice, we'll initiate the barrel roll via a coroutine. However, to keep things clean and to avoid barrel rolling while doing a barrel roll, we're going to have a serialized bool called coroutine active, keeps things nice and organized. And we also want to register how many taps for L or R or Q and E that we have. Those will be two serialized integers, tap count L and tap count right. Next, let's go to the start method and punch in the defaults for these variables. Our first tap time will be 0f. Time between taps, something nice and quick like 0.25f, so a quarter of a second. And our tap count L and R will both be 0. And we also want that coroutine active to be true. We want to be able to go into the barrel roll from the start. Those are the variables we need for double tapping, but we also need a set of variables for the barrel rolling. So let's go back up to the top here, and underneath, punch in a serialized bool. We'll have two bools, rolling left and roll right. So roll right, roll left. Then we want a serialized float for how long we're going to be in that barrel roll state. So we'll have a float called barrel time. We might also want to have a bool, a public bool called isRolling, because we are going to use this later to make sure we can't do certain executions or maneuvers while in the barrel rolling state. So we'll have a public bool isFloating just for good measure. And we also want to deflect lasers when we are barrel rolling. And for that, we can create a simple public game object called barrel roll deflect, which we'll set up in a moment. Then let's go back into the start method and just add a few things, such as our bool isRolling will equal false. And we also want that barrel roll deflect game object set in active. We don't want to be invincible from the very start of the game. With those set, let's go back down to our shoulder input method and punch in our two inputs. We're going to have if input.getKeyDown keycode Q, the same with E. These will register the frame we input the button. When we do, we want two things to happen. We want our tap count L and R to both go up by 1 plus equals 1, and we also want to start that double tapped coroutine that's going to register a second input within that time frame. In order to do that, we're going to say that if our tap count L or R is equal to 1 and the coroutine active is true, then let's get that first tap time and register it as a time. So our first tap time will equal time.time and start that coroutine double tapped. Our double tapped coroutine is below. Go ahead and delete the / and the asterisk that bookend it to set it active. For the coroutine, we use IEnumerator double tapped, make sure the spelling is identical. The first thing we want to do inside, after punching in our variables, is to set that coroutine active as false to eliminate any risk of double tapping again and going into another barrel roll. To register the second input, we're going to use a while loop, and we're going to say that while time.time is less than that of the first tap time plus time between taps, so within that quarter of a second time frame. If tap count L or R are equal to 2, then depending on the direction, so for L, barrel roll left or roll left will equal true, we're going to start the barrel roll coroutine by the barrel roll time or duration. We're going to wait for the barrel roll to finish, so yield return new, wait 4 seconds, again that same time to match. We're then going to set the barrel roll left as false and then end with break. And the same with right, except just the only change here is we're going to barrel roll right. So we're going to set roll right to true and false. We're going to wait for the end of frame for this coroutine to finish. So yield return new, wait for end of frame. And then finally, once we double tapped, after the barrel roll and the double tap input has been registered, we want to set the tap count L and R, the first tap time, to 0 again, like we did in the start method, and set that coroutine active back as true, ready for a second set of inputs for another barrel roll. Right, that is the double tapped coroutine done. We can now double tap to initiate a barrel roll, but we need to create that barrel roll coroutine. Below, we have the IEnumerator barrel roll. Go ahead, set that active by removing the asterisk and the /. For the IEnumerator barrel roll coroutine, we want to have a float duration, how long we want the barrel roll to perform. Then inside, we're going to want to start off with 3 floats. We want a float start rotation. That's going to be our current local Euler angle rotation. So transform.local Euler angles.z. We want to have the desired end rotation. So we'll have a float end rotation. That will equal the current start rotation. and we want to rotate 360 degrees from that rotation. So plus 360F. We'll also want a timer float T or time. That's set to 0.0. This is going to tick up from the moment we do the barrel roll until the duration. We also then want to set active our barrel roll deflect game object, so barrel deflect.setActive true, and set the is rolling flag as true as well for tight controls. For the actual barrel rolling itself, for that we're going to use a while loop, and we're going to say that while the time is less than the barrel roll's duration, we want time to increment by time.delta time, so t plus equals time.delta time. We want to rotate the game object on that z-axis, so the float z rotation or z rot will equal mathf.lerp, and we're going to interpolate between that current start rotation to the desired end rotation over the time by its duration, and afterwards we're going to state that we want the rotation to be between 0 and 360 degrees, and for that we'll make it a percentage, so use the percentage symbol of 360 degrees so that we don't go over or under. That's going to allow us to have a smooth rotation. Now we have to decide which way we're going to rotate based on the direction or the button we use. If rolling left, then the transform.local Euler angle will equal a new vector 3. Transform.local Euler angles x and y are the same. We only want to rotate on that z rotation right here. And if rolling right, the exact same line of code, except we want to go on minus z rotation. And at the very end, we want to set yield return null, just so it pauses, stops the coroutine, moves on to the next frame. Afterwards, for some cleanup, when we're not barrel rolling, we want to set that barrel deflect game object as false, and set is rolling back to false as well, so that we can initiate another barrel roll and another double tap. That's the barrel roll and double tap coroutines done. For an added bonus, like in Starfox, when you barrel roll, you get a slight increase to your movement. We can do the same quite easily by going back to our movement method and underneath punching in one line of code, an if statement that says if we roll left or roll right, or you can put the is rolling here if you prefer, then our transform.local position plus equals a new vector 3. We're going to multiply our x movement, so movement.x, by 1.5, giving it a 50% increase. And our movement y and z is going to remain the same. And we're going to multiply that by our move speed over time.delta time. And that is everything done. Let's go ahead and hit save and head back into Unity. And now it's time for some final setup by going to the barrel roll time in the inspector. This barrel roll is going to be quite quick, and I found that 0.3 works quite well. We also have to make the barrel roll deflect object. To do that, right click, create an empty game object, call it the barrel deflect. And what we're going to do is add two components. We'll add a sphere collider and we'll add a rigid body, as well as it is going to collide with other physics objects. For the rigid body, we don't want gravity. We'll set it to kinematic and leave it like that. Collision detection, you can do continuous if you like. And then what we have to do is go to the sphere collider. You can align the camera so you can see the outline of the collider. That looks okay to me, so long as it is slightly larger than the ship itself. Let's check from above. Okay, that should do fine. You can leave that as is. Let's set it as inactive. On the player controller script, go ahead and drag the barrel roll deflect in there like so. And now let's go ahead and check out this barrel roll. As we fly, if we hold down L or Q, we can lean to the left, double tap, we barrel roll to the left, and the same with E. As we're barrel rolling in a certain direction, we get a speed boost. If I go to the right and barrel roll to the right, you can see we get a nice jolt of speed. As we're barrel rolling, we cannot over double tap and initiate a barrel roll within a barrel roll. That's why we've got nice tight controls. And that's all for this video today. Thank you all very much for joining me. I hope this barrel rolling, leaning and double tapping tutorial was useful for you. In the next video, we're going to look at some speed maneuvers such as boosting and braking, so do look forward to that. Thank you once again, All the best, and I'll see you next time. Take care.